Well, there is nothing about competition with this. So let's be clear about that. Nobody is able to compete with Nvidia. So that's not the issue. The issue is, do their biggest customers slow down capex spending because they're able to do more efficiently with the software they have sitting on top of the hardware, things like training. That's what this is focused on. And so Deepseek saying that they could train their latest model for $6 million versus over $100 million for ChatGPT's latest model, that's the big difference. Because if others start to go, because remember, this is open sourced. So you can go look at the code and say, okay, well, this is what they did for Mixture of Experts. This is what they did for other improvements and distillation, and put that all into models from Llama, which is the one that Meta has. And so that's the real difference here. And that's very different. And think of it much like following either the COVID infrastructure build out, or if you want to go back further to the internet build out, where you had, after that big build out for 5 years, you had a crushing over 2.5 years as people figured out, you know what, internet traffic isn't doubling every 3 months, it's doubling every year. And all this dark fiber in the ground that we put in is now all of a sudden not useful. And you had companies like WorldCom or Global Crossing, or you pick your favorite, all going bankrupt during that period of time. So that's what people are focused on. Nobody questions whether Nvidia is the undisputed king in chips. What they're questioning is, how much capex do you need for things like pre-training, post-training, and then inference ultimately?
Dan, some in the market say that this is going to really drive urgency for U.S. hyperscalers to really leverage what they have, and their key advantage being more access to advanced GPUs. Perhaps that could be a bull case or an okay case, a neutral case for Nvidia. What do you say to that?
Well, if you kind of go back to some of what I've written, don't forget on January 3rd, Microsoft put out a blog post that they said they were going to spend $80 billion in capex. And this is during, we're all on New Year's. And I wrote on that and I said, look, that looks like a good number because it looks like it's up 44% year over year. But if you actually break that down, Microsoft's fiscal year ends in June. They already spent $20 billion in September. They said that was going to be up in December. So that means in the back half of 2024, they would have spent over $40 billion, which means in the front half of 2025, that number is actually going to go down. And they've been spending 70 to 80% more on capex per year for the last year and a half. And they are the biggest spender on AI by far, and NVIDIA's biggest customer. And that's going to go from growing 70 to 80% to basically flat by June based on what they have already put out. And so that's the way you kind of need to think about it, because part of this is, what is the return on investment on what you've spent on so far? And if you think of Microsoft, which has a 49% economic interest in OpenAI, which produced ChatGPT, when they reported the June quarter, they guided below the street for September. Then when they reported the September quarter, they guided below the street for December. So the guy who has a 49% interest in the company that started this all has been lowering revenue forecasts. And so that gets back to, are you getting a return on all this tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars you're spending? And the answer has been no for them. And so we're going to have to see how that plays out. Now, to be clear, from a longer term perspective, I think we're still early in the spend for AI capex in the sense that you still got a lot of inference spend coming, but you're sort of in this valley where post-training, pre-training spending is going to level off, because at the point you've already trained on all the data that exists on the internet, which the largest models are already doing, there's no growth there. And that's what people have to think about, is short term versus the longer term. And in the short term, there could be an AI digestion phase, and Deepseek just helps it along because you now are a lot more efficient.